Darfur.
We have not seen China support any single resolution of the Security Council on Sudan, on Darfur, I should emphasize, that imposes pressure through sanctions, strong language, things like that. In fact, China has gone the opposite way. China has tried to weaken various drafts proposed by other member states to impose pressure on the government of Sudan regarding the issue of Darfur, which has both delayed some of those resolutions and has also, again, weakened the language. And even on resolutions which, in the end, were agreed on in the spirit of compromise, the draft resolution, the text of the draft resolution, on some of these, China again abstained. If an original draft resolution says, for example, we should impose an arms embargo on the country of Sudan, China would say, well, that's perhaps inadvisable, perhaps we should talk about an arms embargo on Darfur only, because the rest of Sudan is separate from the Darfur conflict. In the end, we have gotten only an arms embargo on Darfur, which is, frankly speaking, it is a nonsensical approach, given that Darfur is part of the Sudanese territory, and you allow, so the Security Council has allowed arms trade with the rest of Sudan, except that many of these arms and other material, they get spilled over into Darfur, and there's really no way to prevent that.
To the west of Darfur, we come once again to Chad, which has a direct interest in the Darfur crisis. Thousands of Sudanese refugees have fled to Chad, and Darfur rebels have set up bases there. Sudan retaliates by supplying Chinese oil revenue and weapons to rebels in Chad. China can therefore use its agreements with Sudan to bring influence to bear on Chad as well. And then there's another piece to the puzzle, the island of Taiwan, China's main regional adversary and an American ally. Until 2005, Chad was one of the few African nations to recognize Taiwan. But faced with a growing Chinese-backed insurgency, Chad was forced to break off diplomatic relations with Taiwan and re-recognize Beijing. Chad gained some respite from its rebels, and Beijing signed new oil contracts. A win-win situation.
La place qu'occupe la République populaire de Chine de plus en plus dans le monde, sur le plan économique, sur le plan politique, sur le plan stratégique, la place qu'occupe la Chine au Conseil de sécurité. Le Tchad ne pouvait pas rester indifférent à cette position de la Chine et amené à compter avec la Chine pour faire face à un certain nombre de problèmes qu'il connaît, que ce soit en matière d'aide et de coopération avec la Chine. Nous pouvons trouver des avantages en coopérant beaucoup plus avec la Chine qu'avec la province de Taïwan, et aussi peut-être compter sur l'appui diplomatique de la Chine pour résoudre un certain nombre de problèmes qui nous préoccupent, notamment, ce n'est un secret pour personne, nos relations avec le Soudan à l'époque, le Darfour, aller vers la Chine pour leur faire comprendre notre version des choses, notre cause, notre position, et amener la Chine à avoir une attitude à égale distance entre le Tchad et le Soudan, et non pas appuyer peut-être aveuglement le régime de Khartoum.
But Taiwan is more than a diplomatic bargaining chip. Because of its location, the island is also strategically important. Most of China's oil comes by sea, and this is China's Achilles heel. In a crisis, China would be at the mercy of the US Navy. For the American-controlled Taiwan Strait lies on one of the main oil routes supplying all of East Asia.
The Chinese are very worried that one day in the future their energy security will be compromised as a result of the fact that the United States is the hegemon in the high seas, and it has the #1 naval power in the world today. So the Chinese are doing two things. Number one, they are building a navy. They are investing heavily in blue water navy. Number two, they are building enough capacity, pipeline capacity, to pipe oil on the ground, bringing it from Kazakhstan, from Russia, from Burma and other places, to make sure that they cannot be strangled, they cannot be blocked if there is some sort of a situation over Taiwan or over any other issue in the future. So they don't want to be in the situation that Japan was before the Second World War, that the United States imposed a blockade, an embargo, and they could not get their oil. They're very sensitive to this, and I think that's the main reason why we could see tension between the United States and China over who controls the sea lanes, especially those sea lanes that are related to energy supply.
In this new battle for oil, the United States has one main focus: security of supply. With the Middle East in turmoil and dwindling reserves, the US too is having to seek new sources of oil. Confrontation with China seems inevitable. Robert McFarlane served as National Security Advisor under President Reagan and has worked in energy development.
Yes, I think the world is facing a very intense competition that could get out of hand. China, in becoming reliant on those countries for oil, will probably have less concern about their behavior on important issues: nuclear proliferation, support for terrorism, or indifference to the human rights of their own people. And so it is true that China's growth thus far in capturing oil resources has not always been terribly responsible. There's no wish for China to become involved in a war over energy resources. It's a waste of their money and of uncertain outcome to get into an armed competition for energy with anyone, including Japan and the United States.
China is what it is. We cannot change China. We have to live with China. We need to work with